Good morning to all. Thank you for joining us. Today's webinar is all about island hopping in Greece. We're going to get started now. This trip is happening next September of 2023. It took us a little while to get the dates all nailed down, but we've now done that. So it's going to be happening September 7th to the 22nd of 2023. Just a couple of quick words about Wheel and Anchor, who we are, what we're about. For those of you who are new, we are a Toronto-based community of travelers from all across Canada. So we really focus on members from Canada. We do have a few folks that are joined us from the US, but for the most part, we are a Canadian group. And what we share in common is a passion for travel that is consistent with our Traveler's Creed. And some of you, if you're new, you will have received that in your email when you joined our newsletter. There's a philosophy that we share as Canadians, and it's always warms my heart when I get feedback from people that join in and read the creed and say, yes, that's how I like to travel slow, smell the roses as you will, be gentle and respectful of the people that we meet along the way, the locals that we run into, and also our fellow travelers. And that's kind of, I think, what we share, particularly as Canadians when we travel around the world, and why people love to have us, and we get a great reception whenever sort of a Wheel and Anchor gang rolls into town. And of course, our mission in all of this is becoming well-traveled. And I know that a lot of our members are already well-traveled. I was just in France, on the mainland in France last month with a bunch of people, one couple in particular that had been to almost 100 countries. And, it was really fascinating to hear about all the experiences they had and their approach to travel, and why they come with Wheel and Anchor is because they just like the fact that we go into a little bit more depth. We try to make it more personal, more hospitable, and in doing so, we become connected to one another as travelers, as well as the people that we meet along the way. So that's what we're all about at Wheel and Anchor. Joining me today, so my name is Gordon. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor, and I'm joined by Paula, our senior trip specialist that many of you will know. Good morning, Paula.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. And our special guest today, Giannis, joining us all the way from Crete. You are in Crete at the moment, Giannis, are you not?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all well.
Fantastic. So Giannis is our special partner in Greece, who takes great pride in putting together with us this program that we've been working on for some time, and we're really, really excited about it. So our agenda for today is to go on a little pictorial tour and hear about some of the things that we're going to see on this trip. Giannis and I are going to take you on a little digital guided tours, if you will, about the islands of Greece. This is the focus of our trip in September of next year. So let's dive right in, savor the pictures as we go. We've got some great images about some of the places that we're going to see on this trip. Just a quick overview of the itinerary. Our program begins and ends in Athens. It's the easiest place from North America to fly into. In fact, Air Canada has nonstop flights from Toronto to Athens. And of course, from other cities in Canada, you can get there either through Toronto or using other gateways in Europe. So it's the easiest place to start. But no sooner do we arrive, we're going to fly right out again and head down to the western part of Crete, to Chania. We're going to spend the first few nights of the trip. We're going to then go overland to Heraklion, which is the principal city, the capital, if you will, of the island of Crete. And then from there, heading up into the Cyclades. As you know, Greece has many different groups of islands, and arguably, I mean, they're all beautiful in their own right, but the Cyclades are some of the best. Of course, the island of Santorini will be a one that you're most likely familiar with, but less so. You'll be less familiar with perhaps Naxos and Paros, the other two islands that we're going to be visiting. So you get a little bit of glitz and glamour in Santorini, but then you also get to see some places that are less frequented by certainly travelers from North America. So that's what our program is all about. And so now I'm going to get Giannis's help, and we are going to dive right in. As I say, we're going to fly over to Athens from Toronto, nonstop flight. If you're coming from Toronto or the greater Toronto area. And once we arrive, we're going to head straight out and fly right down to Crete. We'll have a night in in Athens at the end of the program. But of course, a lot of our members like to come in a day earlier. We can absolutely facilitate that. You can do an overnight in Athens for a night or two before the trip, get a head start on that jet lag, overcoming that jet lag, if you will. And then we'll go down to Chania. And I must say, I have not been to this part of Crete. I've been to Heraklion on the other side, but you can kind of get a glimpse of it already. And I know you're probably itching to tell us, Yanis, what is it about this part of Crete that makes it so special and different from, again, the other famous places that everybody's heard of?
Good. Yeah, good question. First, Gordon, I couldn't agree more with you in terms of the package, how special it is. And the thing that makes it special, I think it's the people all over the country, but especially in Greece, in Crete, I'm sorry, it's more hospitable. It's coming from the bottom of our hearts, and it's how we grew up. So this and the other part of Crete, west and east, all over the island, you will find pleasant people being polite from really from the bottom of their hearts. And it's very nice to see that everywhere, this welcoming situation everywhere. And it's a totally different experience when you travel like this and meet people like this.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's such an important point because, when you go to Athens, I mean, it's a big city. It's this hub of commerce for the country. So it's kind of like, being in New York versus being, on the West Coast in San Francisco or LA or something like that, right? Or being in Toronto versus being in the West Coast of Canada. It's a different vibe altogether. So anyway, tell us what we can expect to see when we arrive in Chania and over the couple of days that we're going to spend there.
Good. The area of Chania, the west side of Crete, is well known for its Venetian harbor. Generally, the island is has a huge history. So all over the island, you can see a lot of different periods of our history, like the Ottoman occupation, the Venetian occupation. In the old city of Chania, there are a lot of buildings with the Venetian architecture, like the beautiful picture you have over there with the dry docks. And especially the mainland of Crete, because as you can see in this picture again, there are huge mountains that give you the essence that you're in the mainland, not in an island. So Crete is quite large, and therefore there are a lot of villages hidden behind these mountains, and you can find a lot of authenticity, how people used to live, how they live today, the products they have. Gastronomy is a huge part of our culture anyway, and we are producing a lot of products ourselves, such olive oil, wine, cheese, honey, a lot of different kinds of products. And you can see them in its pure versions. So where they're coming from originally.
Right.
This is a very nice experience. After all these years in tourism, people love that very much. Love to see where tomatoes are coming from. And and it's a very unique experience to have a local guide, knowledgeable guide that show you here and there, explaining everything, and you're coming as guests, but you're living as friends from Crete always.
Yeah, exactly. And, we put a lot of effort into the food and beverage aspect of our trips, because as you say, when you visit this part of Crete, you're surrounded by all these, fresh, agricultural products. We call it farm to table, and it's such a big part of the experience. And, we don't market our trips as foodie tours, but invariably that's kind of what they end up to be. So from Chania, we've got a couple of days to enjoy, obviously, the town itself. We're going to get a little bit outside as well. And as you say, we're going to visit, I think, an olive oil plantation that is in the western part of Crete. What are some of the other things in the area in Western Crete that we can expect to see on this experience?
on this experience, we have on the itinerary some suggestions. The most important landmarks of Hania. There are some natural monuments such as the Elafonisi beach, for example, which is one of the most beautiful beaches, not only in Crete, but in Greece and some of those most beautiful all over the world. Another very nice area, another very nice beach is Balos, for example. And we will see the Cretan lifestyle in the villages I was saying before, how the people live in these villages in the area. And also we can have such experiences as cooking classes, for example, to see how we cook our food, and many other beautiful places. Like the old town is very unique, and the Venetian harbor is also a very nice combination of it. Makes Hania the most beautiful city of the island, and not because I'm from here. And yeah, basically you will definitely need to come back after this trip to see more. And
well, that's kind of the idea. Is we even though we're going to spend a few days here, it's you'll realize there's so much to take in and explore. One of our members was just asking, I saw a question come in, which is a good one, in September. What is the weather like? It's still quite warm in September, but it's obviously well past the heat that you get in July that that Greece is so famous for. So what's that going to be like?
The average temperature in Crete during September is 25 to 30 degrees. So it's a pleasant heat. In July and August, the temperatures are a bit higher to 35 or maybe sometimes 40 degrees. But in September, it's very, very pleasant, good temperature of water as well. You can swim all over the island, even in the south, that it's colder than the north. So yeah, I think temperature is ideal for travel.
It's a perfect time, and we picked September partly because I think part of the experience of Greece is being able to bathe in the Mediterranean, and we'll be able to do that all the way around because you're past the main tourist season. Of course, Europeans flock to the islands of Greece in July and August during the big school holidays. So you get out of that main season, and there's still going to be other tourists around, particularly in a place like Santorini. But when you get out to the western part of Crete, it's a lot less trodden path, if you will, for a lot of folks. So we're going to, as I say, we're going to really explore Chania and other villages in and around the western part of Crete, and then we will head overland. So you'll get a sense of this wonderful mountain landscape as we travel by small mini coach to Heraklion. And here we're going to stop at Knossos Palace. And again, some of us have learned a little bit about Greek history and mythology and so on. What's the significance of Knossos in particular, which is like the must-see of Crete?
Knossos is one of the most historical areas of Europe. Actually, the first organized human civilization in Europe established in Knossos between 2800 BC to 1100 BC. So we're talking about a golden era for the island. The Minoans, the Cretans used to call Minoan Cretans back then. And there were great sailors. They were trading around Mesopotamia, Egypt, the other ancient civilizations. And it's the palace of Knossos, the ruins of the palace of Knossos are in a very good condition. So you can have an idea of how the palace used to be. We see the King Minos's throne. We see very nice pictures, wallpapers in the areas of the palace. And we will definitely visit the museum of Heraklion, the archaeological museum. And most of the exhibits that found in the area of Knossos, but also in other Minoan cities of the island, it's fascinating, like the disc of Festus, for example, which is one of the most ancient scripts and decrypted recently. Yeah, it's some very nice statues and ceramics that you will admire in the Museum of Heraklion, as well as the ruins of Knossos Palace.
Yeah, it is spectacular. I saw it many years ago, and it's even and what I find interesting about this is that our guides there put the history of the ancient history of Greece into perspective in the context of everything else that we'll see in other different places in throughout Greece, but for those who've traveled through the Mediterranean and how it all fits together. And that's what I find particularly interesting when we visit a place like Knossos. So we'll spend a night here, and then we'll jump on our hydrofoil, and because that's kind of the way that locals travel between the islands is by hydrofoil. So if you haven't been on a hydrofoil, it's an experience in and of itself. And we'll jet north across the Aegean Sea to Santorini. And so, you know, pictures like we'll show in the next couple slides, everybody's familiar with. We've all seen them in brochures and in National Geographic and so on. Santorini is sort of the epitome of Greek islands. But tell us a little bit more about Santorini and what we can expect, particularly because we're going to spend a couple of nights here. And I know that a lot of people sort of will jump off and do a trip from a cruise ship. And so they really only scratch the surface. But what is it about Santorini that makes it so special and why people flock here from all over the world?
Yeah. Santorini is an island that a lot of people have it on their bucket list, the travel bucket list. And there is a reason. When I first went to Santorini, I was amazed by the architecture, by the landscape there. Photos are very poor to describe what you feel when you visit Santorini. Even if they're so beautiful, yeah, they're so beautiful, but still you cannot realize what you will see in front of your eyes when you go there. As you probably noticed, the soil is black, so that means it's volcanic. And this is also a very different landscape from the other areas of Greece, the volcanic black soil that you can see in the mountains and the caldera. Also the very nice white and blue houses, which is the characteristic Cycladic architecture. It's the most its most visible version is in Santorini. The beautiful alleys in between, you will see a lot of them leading in a very nice views, panoramic views of the caldera and the volcano. If we're standing in Fira and Imerovigli, you will see the volcano right opposite, which is erupted a couple of thousands of years ago and affected the island of Crete to be
dormant now, though, right?
Yeah, no. Now it's safe. Yeah. Santorini is beautiful from a lot of different aspects, and people are going there for a reason. Believe me, it's even me that I'm a local. I was really, really amazed when I first visited Santorini and enjoyed these views.
And so, as you can see by its location, it's located, you know, up on sort of the side of a cliff. So it's elevated above the sea. And as you can also probably tell here, everything is up and down. So, I mean, of course, you know, the streets go along the side of the mountain, but to get from one part of the town to the other, there are definitely a few steps. So, you know, you want to make sure you get your 10,000 steps a day in before you embark on this trip, particularly to be able to fully enjoy and explore Santorini. As I said, as you were saying, Yanis, we're going to get out away from Fira and the main touristic sites as well. And you know, what else will we see on the island that, you know, again, you probably wouldn't see on your average whistle stop tour?
Mm-hmm. The Santorini Island have a very unique excavation called Akrotiri. It's one of the most ancient, again, signs of civilization in Greece and Europe. Fira is next to Imerovigli. Both of them are beautiful. Imerovigli is equally beautiful, but I think that the most beautiful part of Santorini is Ia, or some people are pronouncing Oia, which is wrong. So Ia is giving us the best possible sunset in Santorini, and the sunset is very famous in this island because the sun is diving to the sea, and it's absolutely spectacular to spend some time watching the sunset there from a lot of different aspects. But Ia is one of the most beautiful spots to watch it. We're going to have a cruise In this cruise, you're going to see the beaches of Santorini. You will see the whole island from another point of view. The Black Beach is a very famous. The Red Beach is also very famous. And we're going to have a sunset watch from a boat, which is very, very unique. Some other places in Santorini, like Perivolos, for example, or Kamares, and the Pyrgos, traditional village, there are very interesting places to visit. But again, you need more and more days all the time.
Well, this is just it. And so I think a lot of people think, oh, I've been to Santorini because I stopped in for just a few hours, but it's there's quite a bit to visit on this island. It's also known as the wine island, which I think a lot of people aren't aware of that, but wine is an important part of the the local agricultural production. And let's face it, I think in Canada, a lot of us aren't familiar with Greek wines. A lot of them don't make it to the market here. But maybe you could say a few words about that, because I know we've got one or two wine lovers in our group.
Yeah, perfect. Greece is trying to find its position in the wine market worldwide. And Santorini is one of the most special destinations. So what's wine all about? It's where it's coming from. So the special soil and the local terroir, the microclimate in Santorini, is giving some varieties of wine like Assyrtiko, for example, or Vinsanto. It makes it very, very special, and the wines of Santorini are getting more known and famous all over the world because they're coming from that small place with this special soil. And it's first is the vineyard, then is the wine.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see some of the vineyards, we'll taste some of the wine, and you'll be surprised. And I know when I first tasted Greek wine in Greece, I was a little trepidatious about the whole thing because it doesn't have the reputation. And admittedly, a few of them I didn't like, but there are some really great varieties there, and from grapes that you've never heard of before. And that's what makes traveling here and sampling it all so interesting as well, is that it's not just the usual Chardonnay and Pinot Grigio and the stuff that we always see. So we'll get a taste of that in Santorini. I think we'll have a lovely time by spending a little bit more, well, quite a bit of time in Santorini. But then we're going to check out some other islands in the Cyclades. And again, this is the part that I particularly like because most people, everybody talks about Mykonos and Santorini and all these places that are so well known. But then you get to some place like Naxos, which I know the color of the water here is, it's amazing everywhere in Greece. But why did we decide? I know we had this conversation a couple of years ago, actually, already back before COVID. We chose Naxos because it's kind of like Santorini, but without the glitz and glamour, if you will.
Naxos, what we can say about this island? I mean, every Cycladic island, even the island in the North Sporades or the Dodecanese, are beautiful. But some of them are really special. Mykonos is really special island, but sometimes the character of the island is welcomes you, but some other times is not. Naxos is an island that welcomes you. So the people there, the general feeling when you're visiting this place, the views, its harbor, the water is a good combination of a nice, very, very nice travel destination. So we chose Naxos instead of Mykonos or some other famous islands because of it's unique in a lot of different point of views. So I'm sure people will love it, and it's going to be spectacular, definitely.
It's going to be spectacular. And so Naxos has got a couple of other islands around it, and it's also got its own share of historical sites. And so once again, there's a variety of things for people to do. For those that are interested in ancient history, we're going to visit some of these places like the I'm going to pronounce this wrong, the Demeter Temple, or the
that was good.
All right, a good effort. Maybe just share with us a little bit about what this is about, and again the significance of this in the context of the Cyclades and the rest of Greek history.
Mm-hmm. The most how can I say, the most famous picture from Naxos Island is this large door, which is the temple of the Apollo.
Right. Here,
Apollo, Apollo was definitely a very important god in the ancient Greek gods history. It was the god of sun. So as you can imagine, Greece was always that sunny, and when when the god is giving you the sun, you want to honor it, because the sun is allowing you to farm, is allowing you to do the cultivations and everything, and it's basically an easier life when you have sunlight and warm climate. So ancient Greeks really wanted to thank Apollo, and also Demeter, who was the goddess of cultivation. So it's a very good combination, a very special combination in this island. So this large door in the temple of Apollo, its ruins actually, and also the Demeter temple are some of the most beautiful and important historical sites all over the Cycladic Islands. And it's a very unique visit for people there, because they're getting familiar with the ancient Greek history, about the meaning of the 12 gods and the interesting Greek mythology. So it's a whole thing, you know.
It's a whole thing, indeed, and it's as I say, it's remarkable to see these from a different perspective. While we're in Naxos, taking in the history and the wine as well, but we're also going to visit neighboring Paros. So we're going to get yet another Greek island on a beautiful day trip here, which is again one more step down in terms of how busy it is from a tourism standpoint. But Paros is quite a charming place, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It's very, very similar to Naxos as every Cycladic island, but as we said, each island have its beauty. You can see the colors of the water. It's very rare to find that in a lot of places in the world. So I think that's what makes Greece so unique, the weather, its waters. So yeah, Paros is another beautiful island that we will visit. And it will be a day trip by boat from Naxos and back. I'm going to spend some time in the island and explore the highlights like the temple of the Virgin Mary. A hard name is coming, be careful. It's the Virgin Mary of Ekadotapiliani. So yeah, it's not necessary to try to pronounce it. But yeah,
we'll have to brush up on we'll have to brush up on our Greek. But I definitely remember all the challenging names. So you'll have a whole day at leisure in Naxos. Again, so much to do. Honestly, when you look at the photos like this, you might just want to, take a long walk along one of these spectacular beaches. You could probably almost get it all to yourself, or at least parts of it in September. But there's also hills to climb. There's other boat tours that you can do. There's so many ways to enjoy and to explore this this amazing island, Naxos. And yeah, as I say, I think that the pictures are, as the proverb says, the pictures are worth 1,000 words. The last Gordon, island.
Sorry, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but the previous picture of St. Procopius Beach this is one of the most beautiful beaches in Naxos, and it's very close to the center, so it's a very good opportunity. So keep in mind this beach is the approach is
accessible.
Yeah,
which is perfect. Again, you don't have to travel to the other side of the island, but rather it's right there. It's out your doorstep, so to speak. And this is what the part of Greece that we wanted to give our members a chance to explore and enjoy as well. The last island on our visit that we added on this rendition of the trip, because I think that when you go to these different places, you almost can't get enough. We wanted to stop in Syros, and so again, from Santorini to Syros, everybody's heard of Santorini. Nobody's heard of Syros, or unless you've really spent a lot of time in Greece. I certainly have not been there. But we wanted to give an even more sort of island experience. So what about Syros is it that we're gonna, what are the highlights of our stay there?
Syros is another beautiful Cycladic island, and its capital is called Ermoupoli. The city of Hermes, the ancient god again, is coming and chasing us all travel around. Syros is another, we can say, from the big Cycladic islands, and the center, a lot of people, locals, local people from Cycladic islands are traveling to Syros to doing their everyday business. So it's like a center. Syros have some very, very beautiful alleys to walk, very nice panoramic views. The mayor house of Syros is a spectacular building with all these steps there. It's a very unique place to visit, and then until you reach the top, you enjoy a very nice view. So basically, Ermoupoli is one of the highlights of Syros, and the region, which is the capital. But here we have also some very nice beaches to see and very nice things to do. In Syros, there is Miaoulis Square, which is one of the most historical. Miaoulis is Andreas Miaoulis is one of the most historical personalities of the Greek-Ottoman War. He was coming from Syros. Some very famous singers like Markos Vambakaris were coming from Syros, and its museum is there. It's very important to the Greek culture and the Greek music history. So Markos Vambakaris Museum is also a very big highlight in Syros Island. And then again, a lot of places to see off the beaten path in the island will make this trip very, very special to you.
And so we're going to have a whole free day in Syros, as we will as well in Naxos, because again, I think that our philosophy is that, people like to have the time to go out and explore on their own. But as with Naxos, as in Syros, it's reasonably easy to get around. Is that not right? I mean, you could either rent a bicycle. It's quite hilly
Correct.
for a bike, but or even a little motor scooter. I know that's how I like to explore the island sometimes, or theoretically one could even, I guess, rent a small car if you wanted to go on your own. So there's different ways to do it. In any event, the whole point is that, we're there, our wheel and anchor host, your local guide, we can point you in the right direction. And to the extent that we don't fill you up on the delicious meals that we have included in the itinerary, you can go and try some out on your own as well. And that's part of the fun is sampling the cuisine, just wandering down the little narrower streets and just sort of stepping into a place. And they'll be super friendly. They'll be the owner, the chef will be there. It's a family owned, most of the time, and they'll invite you in and you'll get to try something that maybe you've never heard of before, or maybe you'll stick to gyros or something that we're all too familiar with. No doubt you will enjoy the food in Greece, and so we'll have a marvelous time. And then after 2 weeks, we'll have really gotten a good sense of the islands of Greece. We'll then head back to Athens, of course, the capital city and the major metropolis in Greece, and we'll have a night there where before continuing on or flying back home, or continuing on for our Turkey program, which I'll talk about in just a second. And I think, Athens is a city where you could also spend days and days in. Of course, everybody will make a trip up to visit the famous Acropolis that you see here in the center of the picture. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to say about Athens and all the things you can do, but it's a great last stop. We'll have a lovely dinner in Athens and have a chance to enjoy the city before, as I say, continuing on. And that will round out our trip around the Greek islands. And I think, Yanis, I think that this is a really amazing trip, and to see some of the best parts of Greece. So
it is indeed. It is indeed. I couldn't agree more. And it really worth to do such a trip, because we're talking about all these unique things that people can experience. but I'm sure there's more that you can find out yourself.
Absolutely. That's just it. And so there's a great balance between, our program that shows you the highlights, but at the same time, the time to go out and explore it a little bit on your own. So I'll touch on some of the logistics now before we wrap out. So all of the details, of course, are in the program itinerary that will get sent to you along with a replay of this webinar. The pricing here in Canadian dollars for double and single occupancy. I will notice the single supplement is quite modest here, but we do have a limited number of single rooms available because the hotels just don't allow us or don't have that many rooms. So if you are a solo traveler and planning on a solo room, then you need to let us know sooner than later because we are limited in the number of solo rooms, of single rooms, excuse me. And of course, inclusions as per always. Pretty much all of the arrangements while in Greece are covered. All of the local transportation, the airfare from Athens to Chania, all of the ferries and hydrofoils and accommodation in lovely hotels. So this program is based on really charming 4-star hotels. And the important thing with that is, like with all of the trips that we organize, it's we can hold an allocation of rooms at those for a certain period of time, but then these places, even the smaller islands like Naxos and Syros, do book up months in advance. So it's important that if you're thinking about it, to make a decision before too long. We will also limit the number of people on this trip, as with most of our trips. So keep that in mind. And again, we have lunches or dinners every day. There are 1 or 2 days, I think, where we have 3 meals included, but we generally don't do that because the feedback we seem to get from our trips is that there's so much food. So there's certainly enough in the program. And the only thing that you have to look after in addition is your airfare, which we can, of course, facilitate for you. Any additional activities, there may be a boat trip, or if you want to go and rent a scooter or a bike or something for the day, those kinds of things are obviously extra. And of course, insurance. I was taking a look at what airfare is looking like for next September. And at the moment, you can fly on Air Canada from Toronto for about $1,000 a round trip, which is pretty darn good. But you've also got options on, Air Transat as well, for those that would like to go that way. So the flights are as cheap as less than $800. And from the West Coast, it's a little bit more, but that gives you a sense of where we stand now with airfare. And good. And of course, if you have any questions, now is the time. It's our Q&A session. So please do write your questions in the Q&A box. But if you don't, or if you feel more comfortable talking to Paula or Barb, or sending us an email, you can, of course, do that. The information is there. But now I'd like to entertain, while I've got Yanis here, some of the questions about this trip. And I think the one question that we answered already was about the weather in September. And I think you said, generally in the mid to high 20s is what we can usually expect. And the sea is also pretty warm still. It's what would the sea temperature be in the Aegean at this time of the year?
The sea temperature in the Aegean, it really depends, because we're different parts of Greece. But we can definitely say that the temperature in the water is quite pleasant for everyone. You can see hundreds, thousands of people swimming in September all over the country. Even me, that I'm cold.
I will definitely be swimming. That's for sure. Paula, what about you've been monitoring questions?
We have a couple of questions. So one quick question, because Susan's having to jump off, was she was wanting to know about the Q&A being included in the replay. So
yes, it's typically, I think, included in the replay. So we will make sure that is in Suzanne. And if you do have any other questions or something doesn't get answered, just drop us a note. We'll get right back to you.
Exactly. And then second to that, Lynn was asking if the recording is available to use after today. Yes. Yeah.
All of our webinars are recorded. They're all put onto our YouTube channel, and a link is always on the webpage where the trip is featured. So you can always get quick access to it. So you can either watch it again or share it with a friend if you've got somebody that's interested as well. So.
Perfect. A follow-up question here from Lynn as well is with regards to the activity level on the trip. Do you want to touch on that a bit?
Sure.
How much
Yeah, well,
walking and such?
As with most of our trips, you can't really enjoy a lot of the old towns in these places, and particularly like places like Santorini. There's just a lot of walking because you can't access it with a vehicle. So our general how should we say, our general standard applies. You definitely need to be able to walk at least a kilometer and a half on your own unaided, and ideally we say to members you should be able to walk about 10,000 steps a day. That's kind of the recommended level, and that will just enable you to enjoy the trip that much more, particularly in these islands that do have lots of narrow streets and alleyways. That's what gives them all the charm.
Definitely. I have another question that's come in here with regards to the cost of meals not included in the program.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Yanis, what would somebody expect to pay for sort of your average lunch if you were in Crete or in any of the islands? Just to give people an idea for any of the meals that aren't included, what would they normally spend?
An average price per person would be, I can say, 25 to 35 per person per meal. It's an average.
Yeah, and that's probably going to give you, depending on where you are, if in Santorini, that's probably 2 courses, and the other places, I guess that's probably more like 3 courses. That'd be like
3-course menu, correct.
Yeah, exactly. With Santorini being a little on the higher end of that, and some of the other smaller islands being probably a little bit on the lower end of that.
Yeah, that's why I said an average cost, because some places are cheaper, some more expensive.
Indeed.
Perfect. And we have a question that's coming here from Rosalie, and she's not the first person to ask this, is she's joining for Turkey. However, would the dates line up to be joining Greece as well? I believe.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they do. In fact, we have juggled both trips so that they do go back to back. So the first day of our yachting the Turkish Mediterranean trip coincides with the last day of the trip in Greece. So you can do both trips, no problem. There's lots of flights between Athens and Istanbul. It's absolutely no problem. So and we're spending the first few days on our yachting the Turkish Mediterranean trip in Istanbul. So if you are interested in both trips, because I know we've had a number of members inquire about, they want to go and do it all in one go and visit this part of the Mediterranean. So that's why we've made them line up. So you're more than welcome to do that. And Paula or Barb, you guys can answer any questions about that.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's definitely, definitely excited. Lots of people are looking forward to joining us in both spots. Yeah, so that's great. Terrific. I don't have any other questions that have come in that I see so far. So anyone can reach out to myself or Barb, as you've mentioned. Oh, we've had one more pop in. Just one second.
I see the question.
Can you see it? Okay.
Asking about why our trip is different from other places that specifically offer Greece tours. That's a very good question, and I think I have a very good answer for that. There are absolutely companies that offer specifically only Greek tours. But if you notice, they offer the same tours over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, it's a series. And so what makes Wheel and Anchor different in general, not just with regards to Greece, is the fact that we curate each and every one of these trips. We run them once, sometimes we run them twice. But the point is that this is an itinerary that you just won't find anywhere else. You might find something similar. You'll find a bit of Crete. You'll find, here or there. But we go on a bit of an exploration. So that's why, we're different. We pick, hotels that aren't necessarily the usual tour group hotels. I mean, obviously other tourists are there, otherwise they wouldn't be hotels. But the experience is just one that has been specially created for us in between Yanis and myself and my team working together. So it's a one-off. And sure, we'll probably do it again in the future, but it's not something that's been repeated over and over and over again. And just like anything like that, it's what I call mass tourism. It's just not the same experience. I can't really put it any other way.
Quality, number one.
Yeah, quality is number one. And yeah, that is the wheel and anchor difference. Okay, good. Well, thanks for all your questions. Thanks for joining us today. And Yanis, a big thank you to you for tuning in from Greece. Really appreciate your contribution as always.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, please do touch base with us if you're interested in joining us in Greece next September. And I look forward to catching up with you all again on our next webinar, which will be next week at this time. And until then, take care, have a good week, and a great rest of the day.